What is happening, people, and welcome everybody to our American football podcast in the End Zone UK. We are back, and can you believe it? Week 18 of the NFL season is over, which means the regular season of the NFL is over, which means Red Zone is over, which means all-day football on a Sunday is over, and I will stop there because I just might cry. I am your host, Dom. And across the mic from me is a man who is experiencing his full playoff experience for the first time in his entire football watching career. It is Big Dave. And Big Dave, how are you feeling today?
Good. I've just had my little ice bath, so I feel refreshed, slightly shriveled. I'm good to go. Ready to talk some foosball.
Good stuff. And I mean, the novelty may have worn off in the fact that you are there now. The games have not been played yet, but your New York Football Giants are in the playoffs. You have to be buzzing, and I know that they clinched it before they needed to clinch it last week, like some teams, but you must be so happy that this week's coming up and you've got another game to watch.
Yeah, buzzing for it. Absolutely can't wait. I'm going to watch us destroy the Minnesota Vikings. They've got no hope. Kirk Cousins, he's going to flop like he always does in prime time, and we're going to go marching on.
Let's definitely hope so for the Giants' sake. But it's a bittersweet time, you know, coming to the end of what is kind of like our weekly Mecca ritual on a Sunday. You don't want to move for 7 hours of commercial-free football, and then you've got the Monday games and the Thursday games. It's basically football all week. And now, as much as the playoffs are what you play for, then the football's going to be going away soon. This season has gone so quick.
Yeah, it's sad times that it's coming to an end. But I will say this: I think I prefer to watch the games play out rather than watching the red zone. So I think I'm happy that there's still football Saturday and Sunday, but it's 4 games, so it's even better because there's actually more of it to watch.
Okay, and it means something as well.
Yeah, and I think there's 3 games on Saturday, or 2 on Saturday, 3 on Sunday. Things are good.
We've still got time. The season's still rolling. So with week 18, we saw some final playoff clinching games that we'll talk about in our recap. But this podcast I am calling the playoff picture, because as usual, we'll bring you some news. We'll bring our famous slap or sign segment. But then me and you, Dave, will talk the playoff picture. We will break down the games that are being played in the wild card round of the playoffs this week, and we'll give our takes on each game as to what we think might happen. Playoff is the time to get excited. It is the time that these top caliber teams are playing towards, and the wild card weekend is just the beginning. So playoff picture is the name of the episode. What we will do firstly, though, is start, and last week we talked about some real gloomy stuff in relation to Damar Hamlin, the guy that had heart failure on the pitch whilst the Bills were playing the Bengals. But we got some brighter news this week. This isn't gloomy news, is it, Dave? Damar Hamlin is alive and well.
He is, yep, on the mend, back in Buffalo, I think now. Probably chilling at home.
He was dismissed
thinking about how lucky he is.
Yeah, very lucky. He was dismissed from the hospital recently, and I think he managed to just start getting cognitive movement back, if you call it movement, in his brain and then in his body, and apparently, which I thought was just beastie. I thought was great. Like, whether it's true or not, I'm hoping it is. But apparently, the first thing he came round when he came round was, "Did we win the game?" And I think that is just another level, like another level of competitiveness, and just how much the football players in the NFL must just have it inbred into them that football matters.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder what he was thinking about whilst he was out and unconscious, and if that was the only thing that was in his head, literally thinking about football.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I had some mad respect for him for that as well. But yeah, he's on the mend. He probably should, or not immediately, but you mentioned it a minute ago, Dave. You've been taking ice baths or cold water therapy, which is supposed to improve many things: metabolism, cardiovascular health, and many other benefits. I've been doing it too. However, I'm as sick as I've ever been, which is not good. But yeah, maybe you should start doing some of that, Dave. How are you feeling? Is it making your heart feel like it's healthier?
I d- I feel better for doing it. Yeah,
Yeah,
I can't really talk on my heart because I don't really have one for starters, and I don't really have a conversation with it. But I feel good. I feel
yeah.
refreshed. Yeah, it certainly makes you come alive.
Mm.
Although I hate everything whilst I'm getting into it is not
It
good.
it is good. I mean, I've missed a couple of days because I'm genuinely sick. Apologies if I have to mute the microphone every so often to cough, but I've been doing it. I've missed a couple of days, but you've been doing it every day solid, and I think it's just like that mind over matter type thing, and cold water therapy. What's our water temperature at the minute, Dave? 9 degrees, which is
Yeah.
Celsius. It's cold, very
Yeah,
cold.
for people who, when you say 9 degrees, it doesn't sound that cold. Run some water, leave it outside overnight, put a thermometer in it. When it gets 9 degrees, pour it over your head. It's fucking freezing.
I mean, that to put some perspective into it, I don't want to go into this cold water therapy too much. Otherwise, I mean, I brought it up, but otherwise it becomes Joe Rogan. We wish, but the average temperature apparently that comes out of your tap at home. So when you have a drink out of the tap or whatever, when you're pouring that water is about 15 to 16 degrees. So, and that feels cold. So imagine 9 degrees. We need to get it lower, but I think we're about getting there. And Damar Hamlin hopefully can start having many different types of therapy of his own. Maybe not cold water straight away, but we don't want him back in hospital. But I think if it helps cardiovascular, all the NFL players should do it, and maybe they do.
Yeah.
Yeah. One person who needs to dunk his head into cold water therapy though is Tua Tagovailoa or Tagovailoa, sorry. He's missing this coming playoff game with another concussion, Dave.
Yeah, I saw that they're talking about starting I don't know if he's a rookie, but they weren't even talking about starting Teddy Bridgewater. They're preparing to start somebody else.
Is it the
Try
guy
and
that
find his
played in
name.
their last game? Because
Yeah, is it Skylar Thompson or something like that? Is that
I
what his
don't
name
know, but
is?
when we were watching it, you were not happy.
He is without a doubt. I didn't even think about him for slap or sign this week.
Mm,
But he is the worst quarterback I have ever seen play football, and that
mm.
includes when I've watched Dom throw a ball outside the house.
I'll take it.
He is god awful.
Yeah.
To score 6 points, I mean, we're going to talk about the game later, but to score 6 points with Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Mike Gesicki,
Mm. Raheem
Raheem
Mostert.
Mostert, and you put 6 points up, it's pathetic. The guy is fucking awful. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I think it's on about starting him. That's where we're going with that.
Yeah, so they're on about starting him because Tua's got another concussion, which is not good for the Dolphins. Tua needs to get some cold water therapy quick. But that changes the playoff perspective, which we'll get to when we get to the segment later. But it's not good for the Dolphins. You want to see starting quarterbacks play. And before we move on to our beloved segment, Dave, dare I, because we talk about it every week, but dare I talk about fantasy this week? For everybody who's out there who does the NFL fantasy through the NFL app, there was massive upheaval considering the Damar Hamlin injury, not last week, the week before. Because he got injured, the game was cancelled, and many players in fantasy world did not end up playing. The NFL was trying to decide what they were going to do with that, And in the end, they scrapped the game entirely, didn't make the players play it, and gave everybody who was supposed to be playing in that team 0 points. Now, that affected some fantasy leagues quite extensively, depending on what the commissioner did in the league. In our league, controversially, we went by projected points as opposed to 0 points, and that changed the landscape, should we say, for our fantasy, didn't it, Dave?
So I'll give you the version of events that actually happened. So what happened was I was beating a lad called Ben. I had a 65-point lead, I think, something like that, and he had 2 players left to play. And it was unlikely, very unlikely, that he would have overcome me. But I was winning. Dom, on the other hand, when the points were nullified from that game, he actually lost to Cam. Cam, who has been on the podcast before. So Dom took it upon himself as the commissioner, and I'm doing air quotes right now, of the league, decided to go into the settings and put himself in the final. Does that sound about right?
To the average listener,
you can hear him stuttering. Therefore, that is a sign of guilt.
No, there's no guilt there.
Moving on to the final game, I, who have been averaging on average 195 points a week, have my worst game of the year, and Dom wins. What are the fucking odds?
What are the odds, Dave? And it's one of those things. This win is going to come with an asterisk. You've definitely done what you intended to do, and make it sound far more controversial than it was, in the fact that I was losing to Cam when the points were reset. However, I had 5 players to play, including quarterbacks and running backs, and I was losing by 3 points. That's all I needed. But we had a discussion. The decision was made, and unfortunately for Dave, I did beat him in the final. It was a one-off, as Dave has been averaging far more points, although I would go ahead and say that I was top of the fantasy in terms of wins. So it is what it is. This fantasy was a bit weird, and I know, and I've been in other fantasy leagues and have seen other fantasy leagues. They've done it either off projected points or they left it at 0, and certain people missed out. We are where we are. It was an unprecedented scenario, one in which we certainly hope doesn't happen moving forward and into next year. We're definitely going to be doing an In the End Zone fantasy league as well next year, and I will try to make sure that we keep that as fair as possible. I don't believe that this was unfair necessarily, but if people are on the receiving end of a loss, they're gonna plead poverty. So
yeah, I'm sure the controversial winner won't think it's unfair.
No,
scum.
So with that, anyway, maybe I'm going to get the slap this week, Dave. Is that what's going to happen? We will move into our favourite segment, which is slap or sign. So I'm not part of the NFC nor AFC, Dave. So if you're coming left field, you might need to slap me in real life. But can I please get from you your final slap in the AFC of the regular season?
So I'm slapping John Robinson.
I don't know who he is.
Who is this, you may ask? He was the general manager of the Tennessee Titans.
Really?
Yes, he's just been fired. So the slap comes at a good time. But I'm slapping him because of his ability or inability to build a roster that was capable of winning one final game to get into the playoffs. And more specifically, the fact that he had Ryan Tannehill, who is at best an average quarterback, and didn't have a veteran presence behind him to counter the fact that if he got injured, you would need somebody to step in. They tried Malik Willis, didn't work at the earlier on in the season, and they still didn't go out and get a veteran quarterback to just make sure things were sure up. They ended up playing, I can't remember what his name is, the guy they played.
Josh Dobbs.
Yeah, he's awful. He's bounced around the league. He's I want to say he's not a rookie, obviously, because he's been around the league for a while, but he had like no starts before last week or the week before that. The guy's awful. And it's cost them a playoff berth now.
Mm-hmm.
So he's getting it. He's getting the slap. The Titans have looked below average this year, and that's not what you expect from a team that not too long ago was the #1 seed in the AFC.
Yeah, it was, and you're right, and this probably comes with the right timing as well, because there was certainly some controversy last season or the start of this season, however which way you look at it, when they decided to trade AJ Brown, who has been an absolute force for the Eagles this year. The Titans have not been able to get anything going through the air this year. Shock, because they've got rid of their two best receivers in Julio Jones and AJ Brown. Everything's on the back of Derrick Henry once again, who unfortunately this season doesn't look like the same Derrick Henry. I think he's slowing down a tick, and that's all got to stem from the top, right? If you've got issues, you look at the top, and it looks like he is he's stifled the opportunity for Mike Vrabel to make another run at the playoffs, and their team is technically probably too talented, certainly on defense, to miss the playoffs. Their defense is good.
Yeah, and to get beat by the Jags in a do or die game, because essentially quarterback can't get the job done.
Mm-hmm. Fair play. Okay, big slap for the GM of the Titans. Sorry, he's off. What about your AFC sign?
I'm going to quickly change it because I put somebody in there to slap again. So I had basically 2 AFC slaps and no signs.
Oh,
like
okay.
Like a peasant.
Just out of interest, who was your second slap?
Brandon Staley, the Chargers coach.
Okay, yeah.
And he got the slap because he played all his starters in a game that didn't matter, played him right to the middle of the fourth quarter, and Mike Williams ended up getting it. Mike Williams?
Yes, receiver.
Got injured, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a tool, by the way. So the fact that I'm not slapping him this week, but that decision definitely earns a slap. Like, if you want to run your players out and keep them fresh and make sure there's no ring rust, fair play. Don't play him into the fourth quarter when you've got nothing to play for, especially when that game became the Broncos game to win. Do you know what I mean? Like, it just became the Broncos game to win. Russell Wilson probably had his best game of the season against this fucking team, so they should have just rested him.
Yeah,
or rested all of them. Sorry.
Yeah, it was stupid. And to be honest with you, I despise the Chargers. I don't know if for some reason they're up there with the likes of the Cowboys and the Eagles for me. I don't know why I don't like them. I don't like Justin Herbert. So
fair play.
And Brandon Staley looks like a moron.
He does.
However, the person I was going to sign earlier before I deleted it to put in another slap was Joe Burrow.
Nice.
Didn't have it. He kind of had I don't want to say middle of the road game, but he did what he needed to do to make sure that the coin toss would never happen between the Bengals and the Ravens when they play each other. Well, they're essentially play each other in the playoffs first round. So
yeah,
he got the job done. I think they were the team that got screwed by the NFL with the decision to not play the Bengals-Bills game, not to replay it. And it could have ultimately cost them if they'd have lost this week to the Ravens. But they got the job done. The Ravens looked terrible.
Awful.
They're going to get bounced in the first round when they play the Bengals again. But the game was pretty poop. It was just more a nod to Joe Burrow for just getting the job done, getting the team across the line. Yeah,
that's what you want your quarterback to do, isn't it? Your franchise QB's got to do all the right things to put you in the best position possible for the playoffs, and that is exactly what Joey Shiesty did. So good sign for the previous #1 pick in the draft. Okay, we fly over to the NFC, and can you please give me your NFC final slap of the regular season?
Dak Prescott.
Dak.
Yeah. So the Cowboys lost to the Washington football team, the Wind Sox, formerly known as the Redskins,
Mhm.
and the Cowboys got embarrassed by Sam Howell.
Yeah,
That's his name.
it's bad.
I mean, Terry McLaurin played lights out as well. 3 receptions for 74 yards and a touchdown. But the Cowboys just didn't look themselves. They didn't look. You want to go into the playoffs. This was a game for them to absolutely demolish their biggest rival, and they couldn't get the job done. They got embarrassed at home. They scored 1 touchdown, missed the extra point. I don't know if they missed a field goal as well. They just did not play well at all.
Mm-hmm.
Dak 128 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. I mean, I love to see it.
Mm-hmm.
Love to see the Cowboys get beat.
So do I.
Um,
And it was a proper dump down 26-6, which is great to see. Like you say, going into the playoffs, it takes the wind out of the sails for the Cowboys for sure.
Massively, and like we were talking about before, they're playing the Bucks away, so they're playing the Bucks in the Bucks house, and the Cowboys haven't won a road playoff game since 1992.
Oof.
So
Yowza.
they got about as much chance of winning that as me getting an NFL contract for being tall and good looking.
You never know, Dave. You might grow a few inches and your face might improve a bit. Okay, cool. So that's your slap in the NFC, and then your final sign of the season.
This guy started out his career with the New York Jets.
All right.
He then replaced Eli Manning for a game, and then backed up somebody by the name of Russell Wilson at the Seahawks.
No,
I'm talking of the one, the only, Gino Domino.
Gino
Smith. Yeah, not because he had a particularly good game. I don't think he did, but in a game where it was win and then hope that the Packers lose, Gino did what he needed to do. He got the Seahawks over the line against the Rams 19-16. Threw for 213 yards, 1 touchdown. He did throw 2 interceptions.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially, he did enough to get the Seahawks in a position where they were the number 7 seed, even if it was only going to be for a few hours.
Yeah.
But the Packers couldn't get the job done. Aaron Rodgers shit the bed. And the Seahawks are going to the playoffs.
Amazing. And yeah, I haven't gloated about it yet. I was giving the praise to the Giants who made it in without a hitch. But thanks for giving Gino the sign this week, Dave. I appreciate it, because I was gonna, obviously we can't sign our own players, and I was thinking the same thing as you. Actually, I was like, I wanted to sign him to say it because he's made the playoffs and because he got the team win, but he didn't have a particularly good game. He threw 2 pretty stinky picks. Well, they weren't stinky. It was just he threw them. He was forcing the ball to DK because we needed to win. And I looked at that as fair fucks. You know, I was like, fair play. We need to win this game. We're win and potentially in. So I was like, if he's taking them chances, And unfortunately, at times, Ramsey is not the man to take your chances against, and he made Gino pay. But he did throw an absolute dime to Tyler Lockett, who tiptoed his way into the back of the end zone to really change the pace and the narrative of the game, just so that the Rams knew that the Seahawks could score if they wanted to. It put the defense on the back foot, and yeah, no, I mean my boys made the playoffs, and it comes down to other factors, but Gino has proven himself this season, and not only that, but he broke Russell Wilson's passing yard record for Seattle, which is absolutely balmy. I think you said to me that that's an embarrassment to Russell, which I do agree, because Russ is a Super Bowl winning quarterback. But also that's a credit to Gino. And at the start of the season, I did give a prediction. It's totally wrong, but I gave one that was still withstanding, which is I said that I thought Drew Lock was going to break Russell Wilson's single season passing yard. So I was totally wrong, but also the concept of our starting quarterback doing better than Russell's ever done did come to fruition.
Yeah, and we said this, that you were right to say that a quarterback was going to beat it. Sorry, but and throwing for 4,200 yards in a season is not to be sneezed at all. That's a good. That's an elite type of throwing season.
30 touchdowns, 11 picks.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, so nice.
So he's got the job done. He's probably earned an extra stay, I would suggest, in Seattle.
I do hope so, actually. I do hope so. Okay, cool. Slap or sign is done.
For me.
For you? What do you want?
I want to replay last week's fantasy, but considering we're past that now,
I was begging for that one.
And I'm not bitter, and I've moved on. I will have your AFC sign.
My AFC sign this week is a mountain of a man in Chris Jones, defensive tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs. He is one humongous human being, and not only that, is he a damn good defensive tackle. He has been the best disruptive tackle in the NFL, I think, this year. I know there's been a couple of good ones, and Aaron Donald is ultimately the best one in general, but he's had 14 sacks. This week, he had 2.5 sacks. He had 3 tackles for a loss. He had 5 tackles in general. He absolutely dominated that that Vegas Raiders offensive line. So yeah, that's the man I am signing from the AFC. He is a dominant force, and if he can keep this up, the Chiefs will benefit from him being on form massively in the playoffs.
Sweet. Who is going to be your AFC slap?
So my AFC slap is going to the Texans again. They were double slapped last week by us, and this week I'm slapping them again. I'm slapping Lovie Smith. The whole organization is bad. Lovie Smith has subsequently been fired, so I don't think a Dom Ainley slap matters to him anymore. But the reason why is because the Texans basically had the number 1 pick in the bag, and they still made a pig's ear of that. That's what I don't understand. Like, they had the number 1 pick. They'd lost the most games this season. They played an awful game this week. Like, they weren't playing well. They didn't run away with the game. They literally had to complete some next level throws and next level first downs to even have a chance of winning the game that they won against the Colts, who are shockingly shit. And they fucking went and did it. They went and did it, and they won 32-31, 1 point away from the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. Are you absolutely fucking special? Like, why would you do that? Every player on the pitch should have just pretended to drop a pass or whatever. And I know that everyone's like playing for their future and they all want to look good, but no one gives a fuck. Like, the way that your last drive in the final game of an NFL season is not going to determine whether you get picked up by a different team or not. Sorry, it's just not. So the fact that the Texans threw away the opportunity of a number 1 pick, whether they're going to use it or whether they could have used it for unbelievable draft capital, just tells me what kind of a franchise the Texans are.
I don't get it. I mean, they don't. Maybe they were looking at it going, if we win this game, the Bears are going to get the number 1 pick. They've already got a quarterback. We're still going to get the guy we want. But what if the Bears don't think Fields is the guy? Or think that one of these quarterbacks is going to be in a better that's coming out, so they trade Fields. And then the Texans have shit the bed again.
Yeah.
Because they've not got a starting quarterback. Or they're not going to get the quarterback that they want.
Yeah, what if the Bears trade the pick?
Yeah, to the Jets or the Seahawks or
the Colts or whoever
Yeah,
else is not
yeah.
up there. It's a stupid, ludicrous decision because then, like, if you have the first round pick, you're on the clock as soon as the season is over, right? You like the fucking Bears are on the clock now. They can make whatever decision they want to make right now. It doesn't determine or depend on who's picking before you. You're not thinking, oh, we might get this guy, we might get that guy. You know who you're getting. It is such a luxury place to be. And arguably, maybe there's not that standout number one pick in the draft, like that standout that somebody says that's the number one pick. But at the same
Mm.
time, if you're a scout, if you work for an organization, you got to know, like as a team, you got to go, this is our guy. We can pick anybody coming out of college and we want this guy. But now they can't do that.
No, and I'm just literally going to bring up the draft order now because I want to know. I want to know who's. So the Bears are 1, Texans are 2, Cardinals are 3, Colts are 4.
Yeah.
So what if they trade back with the Colts?
They definitely could.
Because they know the Texans are going to take a quarterback.
100%. So if by draft time there is more knowledge of which quarterback is technically the best one out of college, the Colts are going to play a run for it.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a weird. I just feel like to chance your arm on getting your pick in the draft, all you got to do is lose.
Yeah.
We said it before. The Jets. It was the Jets, wasn't it? The Jets and the Jags last year. As in not the year that we just not the draft. We just had the draft before that.
Yeah.
And the Jets ended up winning a game, a pointless game that cost them Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah,
they got
nuts.
Zach Wilson. How's that looking for you now?
Exactly. And if nothing else, you're always going to be scrutinized if there's a potential that happens. I know I'm going on about it, but if whatever happens, the Texans don't get the first quarterback in the draft and the one that goes before them is a fucking phenom, they'll just be they need to be a retired franchise at that point because they mess everything up they touch. Yeah. So it's a good job he's been fired and the GM has been fired. So I'll spend no more time on it, but it just really baffled me, that did.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the NFC. Who is your sign from the NFC?
From the NFC, I'm signing Mr. Irrelevant. I'm signing Brock Purdy from the San Francisco 49ers. He had a solid game to take the Niners into the playoffs with the second seed, beat the Cardinals, who aren't a good team, which is, that's by the by. They're a shocking team. But he finished the game with 178 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, passer rating of 141.3. And this guy is a rookie. He's just like any other quarterback. He's just like Malik Willis. He's just like, I was going to say Zach Wilson, but no, he's got 1 year less on him than Zach Wilson. He's just like Kenny Pickett. And this guy's balling out. And I know he plays for the Niners, which gives him a humongous advantage. But at the same time, pass the ball to pass the ball. You pass the ball to a receiver, their receivers are good. Kittle is amazing. McCaffrey's great. Brandon Ayuk is average. Deebo Samuel is good, but I don't know, man. This Brock Purdy could be everything that San Francisco have been looking for. And he's not had enough time to prove himself. If he goes to the playoffs, well, I mean, they're in the playoffs, but if he goes to the NFC Championship, that man has earned the number 1 spot in San Francisco, if you ask me.
Yeah, for sure, for certain. We've talked about, haven't we, about what you would do with Trey Lance, because you can't keep Trey Lance there if you're keeping him because they're on the same timeline. And Jimmy G as well. And they're both. I think Jimmy G's contract's up at the end of the year. I think he only signed a 1-year deal. But Trey Lance, somebody will give you something big for Trey Lance. I'm almost certain of it. So, and if Purdy is the absolute bee's knees, if bees do indeed have knees, Um, they'd be foolish not to tie him up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they don't even need to tie him up, do they? He's got years left on his contract, like you just said. So
yeah,
I don't know. They're in a weird situation.
It's a perfect situation for the Niners because the Niners have got a team that is star-studded at every level, that they will eventually, or even now, not be able to afford a quarterback alongside the players that they've got. So it's the perfect scenario. It's the Russell Wilson scenario. Like, you've got a defense that's number one in the NFL, and you've got a proficient offense. It's how you win Super Bowls, basically.
It is, and their window. I want to say their window's open for them now. Their window's been open for the last 4 years,
Mm-hmm.
and it's essentially on got another 4 years to run because they don't have to pay him, and they can just keep paying these other people. They've got to keep a good team around him.
Yeah, for sure. So I think the lad's done well, and so he's getting a sign. Brock Purdy.
Yeah, happy with that. And then finally, your NFC slap.
So I wrote two down. I won't again take too long, but I'll give you them both. So my actual slap is going to the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, I thought as much.
Yeah, I mean I'm happy about it. So technically I don't want to slap them. I think that thank you, Packers. Basically, thank you for. I'm giving them a high five as a slap, just a high five to the face, because the Packers, all they needed to do, they had no circumstances riding on anything going into this week. All they had to do was win and in. That's it. They didn't have to rely on anyone else. They didn't have to have the chips fall in their favor. It was just Packers, you win, and somehow, because they've been shite this year, you're in the playoffs. Winning, you're in the playoffs. Where are they playing? Lambeau at home, one of the hardest places to play in the NFL. Who are they playing? The Lions, who, for a proportion of this year, have been turbo turd, and they couldn't win. And it was an absolute stinker of a game. No team looked good. So even if either of those teams had made the playoffs, that would have been, I think, a disservice to the Seahawks. And I think that the outcome that needed to happen was what needed to happen. They didn't look good enough. Neither team looked good enough. Aaron Rodgers looks desperate. I think it should be his last season in Green Bay. And the Lions won, so fair play to them. But because we won, they couldn't get in. But they didn't look great, and it was a poor game. But particularly the Packers, man, their defense is savage on paper, and they've got a three-time back-to-back two-time MVP quarterback. They need just not good, man.
No, their window's firmly shut. Speaking of windows,
yeah,
couldn't be any more shut, nailed shut, doesn't even open. It's not one of those hotel windows that doesn't even open. The Packers, what they're going to do, I have no idea. Rodgers was doing everything possible to make you believe that he is not coming back or retiring at the end of the season. He's going to do one or two. Is he going to... Him walking down the tunnel with Randall Cobb, pushing the cameraman out the way. I don't know why he's pushing the cameraman. The douchebag couldn't wait to get in the cameraman's face after the last couple of wins they've had and bigging it up. Oh, we're still in it. All we need to do is win and we're in. Yeah, guess what, douchebag? You lost. And you're out. You got beat by Jared Goff.
Yeah.
A player the the Rams, the LA Rams, couldn't wait to see the back of. Couldn't blame him for enough in LA. Now he's actually doing all right at the Lions.
This is a massive change in the guard, I think, because the Lions actually started to look very good at the end of the season. They're building the perfect scenario for an NFL team, which is a dominating offensive line and a dominating defensive line. They've got 2 early first-round picks in the draft. The Packers have got 1, and they're about to lose a quarterback, 2 safeties. They don't have any receivers. They can't afford anything because they've got no cap space. They can't afford to pay Aaron Jones. They're in trouble. I mean, what we will do next week, because the games are minimal and it'd be nice to get him back on, but I'd love to get Lil Cam's take on the Packers season. So I think next week we'll bring him in on the playoff podcast, see what he's got to say about the Packers season, see what he thinks about the whole situation with Aaron Rodgers and what's happening. So we'll special guest him next week, I reckon, Dave.
Yeah, sounds good. A three-way with all of us.
That sounds rotten.
Yeah.
Nobody
my
wants
dream.
to see that.
It's my dream, listeners.
But yeah, so I'm slapping the Packers. And then the other team that I was going to slap, which needs far less conversation, is I was going to slap the Eagles. I was going to slap the Eagles because they played all their starters against your Giants, Dave, and it looked like they were playing. Well, I don't want to say it looked like they were playing the Giants' first team, but the Giants' seconds and thirds held up and kept the Eagles' first team in check for the majority of the game, if not all the game, and actually kept it really, really close, which is embarrassing if you're an Eagles team that was trying to build momentum. I know they wanted to roll Hurts out and see what he could do after a couple of weeks of an injury, but they only beat you 22-16, like the number one seed in the NFC playing a backup team. You'd expect 40, 50 points, and you wouldn't have been embarrassed either.
No, we said it. I mean, the Giants obviously didn't look good, especially they looked all right in the second half. They got 2 touchdowns in the second half. They looked very, very pedestrian in the first half. But you're right. We did not play one starter. I think Evan Neal might have played half the game at right tackle. But the Eagles played their entire first team. They played everybody they could play because they needed to win this game to secure the number one seed, and they played them for 3.5 quarters. Yeah. They took the starters out in the fourth quarter.
Madness.
They could not get near Davis Webb.
They
didn't sack him once. They couldn't. For a team that's got, I think they've got 4 players on their defensive line that have got 10 plus tackles.
Sacks, yeah.
They're 10 plus sacks, yeah. And couldn't get one sack in that game.
No, that's madness, that is.
They were awful.
That's good for you boys as well, to look at the depth that you've got on that offensive line, to know that actually, when tested, they can actually do all right.
Yeah. It just gives you more confidence knowing that you're going into that game. That if we do play them, if we beat the Vikings and then you lose to the Niners, we'll play the Eagles.
If we lose to the Niners.
Yeah. Well, no, this is my point.
Yeah.
I think the Niners Seahawks game will be a lot closer than you think because it's a divisional game. Anybody can win a divisional game.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're true.
I think that if you're going to win a game in the playoffs, it was going to be against the Niners.
I bloody hope so.
We shall see.
Cool. No, that's it. That was our probably extended slap or sign, but that's good because we're only going to talk about a few games. So we now move into our recap, and the only games we're going to recap and just really briefly cover are the games that had playoff implications. So on Saturday this week, the Chiefs played the Raiders in the opening game of the week. The Chiefs battered the Raiders, put an absolute hurting on them. Not to the level that Dave would have liked from Mahomes. The Chiefs dominated on the ground and put 3 rushing touchdowns in, which was not fantasy happy for those with Patrick Mahomes. But the Chiefs dominated. They made a Raiders team that hung with the Niners last week look worse than average. They caused issues. As I said, Chris Jones pass rush. Mahomes is Mahomes. He still looked great. He just didn't do what he needed to do touchdown wise. And the Chiefs take the number 1 seed in the AFC and roll into the playoffs looking damn naughty. And the Raiders go into the offseason looking quite the opposite. They've got a lot of things to change. Raiders need, quarterback. Defense needs to get sorted out. Defensive coordinator needs to be sorted out. Not looking good at all, are they, Dave?
No, and for a team that had so much promise at the start of the season with they've got some electric players on offense. They've got 2 great wide receivers, a great tight end, a great running back, and they just couldn't get the job done. And I feel like Derek Carr's been kind of hung out to dry a little bit because they were putting the points up. He can't play on defense. You know what I mean? If your defense is leaking points. And you're getting double-digit leads, and your defense can't. I don't know. It's like a sieve trying to stop water. They've just got nothing on defense. And that's a lie. They've got good pieces on defense. They've just got a defensive coordinator who I said at the start of the season is dog shit. We had him at the Giants. He just plays. You get a lead, he'll play soft and just let the team just come back on you.
That's exactly what the Raiders have done all year. So
yeah, so I think Derek Carr's been seen off a little bit, and I think he'll go on to bigger and better things.
Let's hope so, because he's not a bad quarterback. I don't really like the guy at all, but he's not a bad quarterback. So we shall see. As we've already covered, the Jaguars beat the Titans. It was a winning in for either of these teams, which makes for great watching, but the game didn't really make for great watching. The Jags won 20-16. We've spoken about why the Titans just didn't get this done. Buccaneers Falcons, no playoff implications. Won't talk about that. 30-17, Falcons won, but the Bucs didn't play starters. The Patriots played the Bills, and there was everything to play for in this one in terms of placement and playoff potential. But the Patriots lost to the Bills. The Bills came out with all that passion and all that pride for Damar Hamlin, and they put a hurting on the Patriots in the end. It was a slow start, but Allen just warmed up as the game carried on. He ended up with 254 yards and 3 touchdowns. Again, massive fantasy implications for those who had Josh Allen in the final week of fantasy. The Bills go in now. I think they've now got enough momentum to be. I think they dropped momentum, but now I think they've got enough momentum to still be a huge problem in the playoffs.
The Bills.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm assuming they're going to turn it on for the playoffs, and if the Dolphins can't play Teddy Bridgewater because he's injured as well, they've basically got a first round bye, because if that youth plays like he played last week against the Jets, the Bills are going to absolutely stomp all over the Dolphins.
Yeah, the Bills defense are going to eat him alive, aren't they? We'll see. We shall see. The Bears lost to the Vikings. No shock there. They've now secured the number 1 pick in the draft. The Bears with 3 losses and 3 wins, and 14 losses. The Bengals destroyed the Ravens as they needed to keep them in the toppest, if that's even a word, the toppest seed in the AFC. They beat them 27-16. They play them again in playoffs, an immediate rematch. Texans beat the Colts, as we've spoken about, in the most dumbass game you've ever seen in your life. The Dolphins were playing to get into the playoffs, and they managed to scrape a win against the Jets, 11-6. Absolute toss of an affair. Jets didn't deserve the win, neither did the Dolphins, but that's where we are at. The Saints and Panthers, also a torrid affair, 10-7. The Browns paid the Steelers, and the Steelers did absolutely everything they needed to do to try and get themselves into the playoffs. Just not enough. 28-14. They won against the Browns. And then the Chargers played their starters, as Dave said earlier, against the Broncos. The Broncos actually played very well against the Chargers. Russell Wilson had his best game of the season, 280 yards, 3 touchdowns. But the Chargers now go into the playoffs limping because their head coach is a mong. Giants just lost out to the Eagles. Giants second team, 16. Eagles first team, 22. Pretty poor. Niners put a hurting on the Cardinals, as we've spoken about as well. Brock Purdy on fire, 38-13. The Seahawks, my boys, my beloved Hawks, needed to win to get into the playoffs. Winning in if Packers don't win. And 19-16, we won a field goal in extra time. I was still awake at 12:30 or 1:45 in the morning on my knees, and I will admit that, on my knees in the living room when our kicker Jason Myers went to take the second of his potential game-winning field goals of the last 2 minutes that he played, and kicked a field goal to win the game against the Rams and take us into the playoffs. I was fist pumping like crazy. So we won 19-16. The Cowboys got battered by the Commanders. No playoff implications, just playing for pride, and the Cowboys have got none. 26-6. Dak took a huge shit on the pitch, and then the Packers lost 16-20 to the Lions, which we've already covered. And that is the recap of those games this week, Dave. Regular season is over. Sad times.
Time to say goodbye.
Got quite a good voice there, Dave.
That wasn't Spotify, that was me.
Wow. I thought you just pressed play on a boombox.
Just my voice box.
Very good. Okay. Final segment. We move into a segment that will cover off all of the games that are happening this week in the wildcard weekend. This is the playoff picture. And so we're going to just go through the games, Dave, that are going to be played this week. I want from you, and I will give mine. I want just general thoughts about the game and what you think the score will be. Listeners, get your pen and notepads ready. You might want to take these down. Get down to Ladbrokes, get down to Sky Bet, get down to Coral, and put some money on these boys, because Dave knows what he's talking about, and I speak proper good England. Let's do it. The first game of the week. The first game tomorrow. Yep. Not tomorrow, sorry. Saturday night, Dave. Playoff picture starts with the Seattle Seahawks playing against the San Francisco 49ers away at Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara. Who, how, what, when?
I'm going to say that, like I said before, it's going to be close. I think it's going to be close for a quarter, and then you're going to get your back doors blown clean up now. I think it'll be a close-ish affair, so I'm going to say that the Niners win a close game, and they win 26-21. That's probably not that close, actually, but 26-21 is what I'm going to say they're going to win.
It's fair. It's within a touchdown, isn't it? So, okay, cool. I think the Seahawks are going to win.
Good.
I think the Seahawks are going to win. We have beat the San Francisco 49ers far more times in the last 5 years than they've beaten us. Now, this is a different Niners team. It's got Christian McCaffrey in it. It's got a healthy quarterback in it. It's got an on-form George Kittle, and it's got a defense that's a savagery. However, I stand by my boys. And I think if we do beat these guys, we're going to have to hold Purdy to not many points, because we're not going to score many on the Niners. So I think we win what is a little bit of a tight stalemate of a nobody wants to make mistakes kind of game. And I think that we win 19-17.
Okay.
In terms of that game, what's like how's that going to get done? Like who's going to show up in this game, do you think?
I think Kittle will be the difference. Especially with your middle linebacker going out. It's going to open that middle of the field up.
It's true.
And I think that McCaffrey's obviously going to be the key piece, but they've got a healthy Deebo Samuel, they've got a healthy George Kittle. It could be a painful experience.
It could, yeah, no, it could. It is a Niners team that is firing on all cylinders and has got weapons everywhere, and we are on the injured side of things. So we shall see what happens, but it will be good football. 9:30 p.m. Get watching. The game after that on is technically Saturday night or Sunday morning is the Chargers playing the Jaguars. It's at the Jaguars house in Jacksonville, Florida. What do you reckon?
So I've done my Super Bowl bracket, and I had the Jags to beat the Chargers.
Nice. Nice. Score?
I think the Jags will beat the Chargers. I'm not going to do scores, in fact, because I've not planned it, and I'm just pulling numbers out my arse. But I'm gonna say that the Jags are going to beat the Chargers, and I don't think it's going to be close.
Okay, you think they're just going to dominate the Chargers?
Yeah.
Yeah. I also think the Jags are going to win, Dave. I do. Yeah, we can bin the scores off because we're not Mystic Meg, more like Septic Peg. But the Jaguars do win comfortably. I think the Chargers did themselves a disservice last weekend, and it's probably going to cost them a playoff game. No Mike Williams, Joey Bosa went out, and the Jags defense is pretty nasty. It can stop the run, which is all they've got. Eckler is all they've got, and Travis Etienne's a bit of a beast. I think the Jags win, and I'd like them to as well. Actually, good stuff. I think to win, they need to. I think the Jaguars just need to find a way to get Etienne going and just rely on the defense.
Yeah,
I reckon.
Yep, looking forward to it.
Mm-hmm. Next game of the wildcard weekend is the Dolphins against the Bills. The tour-less Dolphins taking on the Bills in New York at the Bills' house.
The Bills are going to demolish them. No, I don't think it'll be that much of a demolition because the Bills haven't been playing that great either. And with Tyreek Hill and Waddle, they do have that ability to claw back 20 points in about 4.5 minutes.
They can stay in games, can't they?
But the Bills will win this game. I'm quite comfortable the Bills will win this game.
Right. Yeah. No, I think the Bills win this one as well. There's no two ways about it. Bills win comfortably. Next game is the New York Giants playing the Minnesota Vikings at US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis, the Dome. Are you backing your boys, Dave?
I'm backing my boy. Just to let everybody know, in my playoff, I don't even know what you call it, Super Bowl challenge, where you pick all the teams to and all the fixtures all the way along. I've got the Giants winning the Super Bowl, so so yeah, I've got the Giants beating the Vikings.
Nice. Well, you've got to have faith, haven't you? And I think that personally, because you lost the last game against the Vikings, I think that you win this one. I think because it was so close and the Vikings have been in such close affairs, I think their time's kind of done. I mean, they put a hurting on the Bears this week just gone, but that's nothing. The Bears are shocking. The Giants have stayed close with every team pretty much that they've played this year, and it kind of just feels right. You know, it feels like the Vikings have scraped through many games, and I don't think the Giants are a team that you scrape past twice. I think they'll make some adjustments. Brian Daboll is clearly a very, very good head coach, and I think you scheme it up to beat the Vikings at their place, and the Giants progress.
Yeah, well, the Vikings are the only team in the playoffs with a negative point differential.
Really?
And they won they were 13-4 in the regular season.
That's mad.
They've got -3 points.
That is crazy. As if that's a thing.
Yeah.
It's like Cam in the fantasy playoff size.
Yeah, you just put yourself in the final. Just be aware of that. If you want to join the fantasy next year,
you're a dickhead.
If you come in the top 2, you're just going to put yourself in the final anyway.
It's not true.
And then fix the points so that all players play shit.
Yeah, I did do that, to be fair. I admit that I phoned up all of the players that were on Dave's roster and said, look, listen, Mahomes, I know you can throw 4 touchdowns this week, but can you just throw 1 and hand it off 3 times? And he was like, yeah, okay, no worries, Dan, I'll do it for you, just so Dave doesn't win the fantasy.
Yeah. In case anyone was under any illusions, he is scum.
2 more games, Dave. 2 more games. Ravens, Bengals. I think the Bengals are going to just shit all over the Ravens.
The Ravens got no chance of winning this game. Literally no chance now.
No. It's playing it in Cincinnati, in Ohio. The Bengals are a sneaky good team this year. The Ravens are like a sneaky bad, as in like they're 10-7, so their record looks. You think, oh yeah, the Ravens. They've looked awful for many weeks in a row.
Yeah.
So
since Lamar Jackson went. So.
Basically. Is he playing in this one, do you know?
No.
Is he not?
No, maybe he is.
I'm not sure if he is or not, but I think Yeah, I think it's too little too late for the Ravens. So we'll see what happens. Bengals. Finally, the Cowboys are playing the Buccaneers at the Buccaneers house, Raymond James Stadium, Tampa Bay.
I'm going to say that they continue their streak of not winning an away playoff game, and they lose to Tom Brady and the Bucs because he is that damn good.
And I'm going to say the same, and I think the Buccaneers win. So we've actually aligned on every single one here. So people, if you are listening, you've now got 2 professional opinions as to which teams are going to win this week. Get down to the bookies.
No, I said the Niners.
Oh shit. Well, maybe listen to Dave on that one because I'm going with my heart. But apart from the Seahawks, maybe don't bet on that game. We're very much aligned, and I think the Buccaneers are going to win as well, Dave. I think Tom Brady. It's Tom Brady. Tom Brady could win it. The weirdest thing is, and I said this to Cam the other day, Tom Brady could easily win another Super Bowl right now.
Yeah.
Couldn't he?
Yeah, 100%.
He's in the mix.
Yeah, and I think they've had such an average season that he just turns on the juice and just gets them going.
Yeah. And I think when it comes down to it, their team's not that unhealthy apart from their offensive line that's been awful, and injured all year. They've got everyone else. They've got playoff Lenny. He's playoff Lenny, for fuck's sake. They've got Evans, who's just started to come to life and had a day last time he played. They've got Godwin. They've got multiple running backs. They've got a great defense that's come to play as well in the last few games. Tom Brady could win another fucking Super Bowl, man. Legit. That would be absolute carnage.
He's not allowed to have 8.
You're vetoing it.
Yeah.
Veto it. Dave's vetoing it. Don't bet on the Bucs. Bet on the Cowboys. And that's it. That's the playoff picture. We're done. We're over. Regular season's done, Dave. It's been a fun episode, actually. It always gets a little bit more random when you get into the playoffs, doesn't it? So we'll welcome in Big Camo next week, and we'll talk some playoff action. Yeah.
Talk about how happy he is that the Packers are going to be watching the playoffs at the same place he is on his couch.
Absolutely.
Probably not on his couch. But...
Probably not. Unless no, it's just not happening. I don't think he's mates with Rodgers. Good stuff. Well, everybody, thank you for listening once again. We will be back next week to cover the playoffs. Please make sure you share this podcast. Follow us on Instagram at In The End Zone UK. This has been the playoff picture. Peace out.
Laters.